Option settings: lock level, downstream occlusion, and air in line. Next, we're going to set our lock level, our air sensor, and our downstream occlusion setting. First, let's talk about lock levels. The pump has 4 lock levels: off, which is the default, lock level 1, lock level 2, and lock level 3. The higher the number, the more restrictive. In other words, if you set the lock level for home infusion, it's typically set at lock level 2. This allows patients to hang new bags as needed, but they would not be able to manipulate any of the settings, such as your air sensor or downstream pressure, and they would not be able to manipulate any of your programming without the access code. Now let's review the air sensor. The air sensor has 4 settings. It will always default to 0.5 milliliter of air detection before you would get an air in line alarm. The other settings are 0.1 milliliter, which is extremely sensitive, 2.0 milliliter, which is often used with TPN because of the off-gassing of air. These types of infusions require an air eliminating filter. The last air sensor setting is off. Moog does not recommend turning the air sensor setting off. However, one application may be for chemotherapy drugs when you do not want the patient disconnecting or priming air from the line due to the biohazardous risk. However, you would need to have your air eliminating filter in place or the pump will not allow the sensor to be turned off. The pump will require you to validate that an air filter is in place or it will not turn the air sensor off, but will default to 2 milliliters. Downstream occlusion pressures will default to the low setting in all modes except the PCA mode. The PCA mode will default to the high setting. The low setting will alarm at 400 millimeters of mercury, which converts to about 8 psi. The high setting will alarm at 900 millimeters of mercury, or approximately 18 psi. For thick, viscous fluids, you will probably want to set the downstream occlusion setting to the highest setting. This includes such fluids as IVIG, TPN, and so on. Okay, so let's go into the options menu and review those settings. Once you're in the menu, you can see the lock level is the very first field. It is important to review the lock level table in the user manual to fully understand the lock settings. When a pump has never been programmed, or when you have cleared the prescription, the lock level will be off. With the lock level off, no access code is needed to make any programming changes. Press No, and it changes to lock level 1. Lock level 1 does not allow a new program to be initialized. However, it does allow for changes to an existing program without the access code. Press No, and it changes to lock level 2. Lock level 2 does not allow a new program or any changes to an existing program without the access code. It does allow for priming on the pump in all therapy modes except PCA, and does allow for bag changes without the access code. Lock level 3 does not allow a new program, changes to an existing program, priming on the pump in any therapy mode, bag changes, or access to infusion data without the access code. This is the most restrictive. For this in-service, we will set a lock level 2. We will not be covering all of the menu items available in the options menu, but I will briefly describe them. Hourly totals. The pump accumulates data hourly. If you press No to off and Yes to on, the hourly totals will come up on the screen and you can view the data here. We'll leave it off for now. Next is Clear Hourly Totals. If you enter this screen, you will be able to clear the hourly totals as needed. However, the hourly totals accumulate for a 24-hour period. Therefore, you can scroll back up to 24 hours from the time you are accessing the screen to obtain data for each hour for the last 24 hours. As you come into the new hour, the last 24th hour automatically drops, so we'll keep clear hourly totals off as well. Next is our downstream occlusion pressure. You can see that it is defaulted to low. Press No to change the setting to high. If the pump requires an access code, place the access code in and continue. The lock level would indicate if the access code is required for this feature. Press Yes to confirm the high setting. Note that any time you enter a new therapy, the downstream occlusion pressure will default back to the low setting. Anytime a therapy is repeated or resumed, this setting will be maintained. Next is the air sensitivity setting. The default value is 0.5 milliliter. Press No and the field changes to 2.0 milliliter. Press No again to change to off. Press No again to change to 0.1 milliliter. Pressing No again toggles back to 0.5 milliliter. Again, I want to reiterate, if you want to turn the air sensor off, you must have an air eliminating filter. If you do not, the pump will set it to the highest value, which is 2.0 milliliter, but it will not allow you to turn it off. Press Yes to 0.5. Audio. This is the audio volume control. The values are 1 to 9, with 1 being the lowest and 9 being the highest or loudest setting. The default value is 9. However, when the audio is changed, that setting is maintained. Power check. This is a manual way for you to check the battery life or check your power. If we were plugged into the AC adapter, it would say external power, and the bar graph should read full. If the C-cell batteries were only in use, it would read internal power, and the bar graph would indicate the battery life remaining. And lastly, it says, do we accept these options? Yes or no. Press Yes to confirm all settings. Now remember, if you press No, any changes you made in the options menu will go back to the default values. So let's say Yes to accept, and we're back to the Run to Start, No to Review, Options, or Prime screen.